Hello and welcome to episode 477 of Geektown Radio. I'm your host Dave, and with me this week is Matt. How are you doing?
I'm okay, David. How are you?
I'm doing all right, thanks. Nice to have a regular co-host back on after we've had some traitors on the last few times. What have you been watching?
Similar things recently. One show which is finished for its current season, Foundation. The crazy finale of that happened, which is third season for Foundation. And I love this show for a lot of different reasons, most of which are just the general quality and just how wildly ambitious it is. And even if I don't understand every single little thing in the show, which I've got used to at this point, as long as I've understood the general gist of where things are going. And I love sometimes how the show will go, these characters are going to do these bunch of things. What do you make of that? And that's usually very interesting. And then the finale happened. And then it then posed the question again of, okay, a bunch of stuff's going to happen, but this one particular character is going to do quite a few things. And then once all those things have played out, what do you think of that? And I was just watching these just crazy things unfold in this finale. But a brilliant episode, by the way, as it usually is. And then the episode ends and it's cool. It's now in this state. What do you make of that? And I was like, okay, all of those things are very interesting. I have no idea where you're going with those, but it's not in the way of some shows. It's I have no idea where you're going because I don't think that you know where you're going. I'm pretty sure you do know where you're going because I trust that, but I like that I have no idea where you're going next, which Foundation tends to do that a little bit in its season finales, particularly obviously the shift mainly from seasons 2 to 3, because 1 to 2 I remember being a little bit similar, and then season 3 has been a bit of a different beast for time reasons and all those kinds of things, because I don't yet know, and I don't think I will know until next season comes around, do I like all the choices that they made? It's a rare show that kind of does that, because I don't know if I actually like all the things they did. I found them all very interesting and very intriguing. I trust them to go in the right direction, but it's just going to be more about seeing where those things go going forward. But I loved it anyway. Again, it's just, I know I'm talking about it in a particular way, but it's just a very particular show with a lot of the things that it tries to do. I take it that you saw the end of that. What did you think of Foundation?
Yeah, it's been fascinating, the end of this season, because the whole season's been about the collapse of Empire, pretty much. I still find it phenomenal that the entire Cleon thing was an invention for the TV show, because it's such an integral part of the show, but was never in the books.
Yeah.
And I feel that blows my mind. That was like, because it works so well as well.
Plus, it's also a very main thing for if you took those characters out or did something different, you'd have quite a different show, I think.
Yeah. The Cleon dynasty was in the books, but it was a traditional normal dynasty. It wasn't clones.
No.
So the main difference would have been you would have had different actors playing them every single time, and they would have been very different. But the fact that it's supposed to be this kind of lineage, and they're all supposed to act the same, and this bug has been introduced, which has wildly changed their personalities as we've gone through the seasons. I think that's been a far more interesting thing than having it just being a sort of essentially royal dynasty, which is what it was in the books. So I think they've managed to do something far more interesting with it. And it works so well, particularly now we've got to this point where they've gone completely off the rails and we've no idea what's going to happen next time, considering it seems like some of those characters are now completely gone unless they found a way to rescue them. So it's going to be a very different sort of show next time around, I think. And the introduction at the end of this new group as well.
Yeah, can't wait to see what they're all about as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a very different thing next time around. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see where it ends up. But I've really enjoyed it. It's great to have a sort of genuine hard sci-fi show on TV, because there aren't that many of them around, and I think this is just really top notch and works really well. There was, just since we're talking about an Apple show, I may as well mention this here. Apparently Apple TV Plus is no longer Apple TV Plus. It's now just Apple TV. They've eradicated the plus off it, apparently, from today.
Okay.
So I don't know why the reason that is. And it's weird because it wasn't like some big announcement either. They dropped it into the bottom of a press release about the F1 film that's coming out. There was a thing about the F1 film. It was like, oh, by the way, we've taken the plus off Apple TV. It's now just Apple TV now, right? Apple TV Plus.
Maybe you'll now get a cycle of, because almost not every single one of them, but a lot of subscription services when it started coming out was like something plus. I wonder if we're now going to get into an era where everyone starts taking their pluses away or something.
Maybe.
I mean, you've got like really old ones like PlayStation Plus, but that's been around like a long time. And then everyone who came out with a new one, like Paramount, Disney, obviously Apple here as well, all just slap their names on it with a plus.
With a plus on the end, yeah.
Yeah. But we'll see. Sticking with Apple TV Plus and sci-fi, but much more relaxed. And when I say simple to follow, that's not an insult or anything like that. But I've been continuing with Invasion. I do have one episode to catch up with. I think it's the 8th episode, something like that. Very good this season so far. I would say so far with the 2 and a bit seasons we've had, season 1's still probably the best season. Season 2 had... It's interesting with season 2 because I look at season 1 and season 3, and I know we've not finished 3 yet. It feels like season 2 tried a bit too hard to be too complicated, and I think I've nailed on that as the reason as to why it had a bit of a dip in quality, because season 3's kind of continued obviously the story from 2, very much so from the cliffhanger, and then just simplified things, which I've actually really liked. And I look at the way they've told stories in 1, 2, and 3, and I think season 3 is the simplest so far. Season 2 is the most, again, not hard to follow, but like too complex. And season 1 was, we're going to give you a lot of lore, but we're going to keep it straight and simple. So I've actually quite liked that about season 3, and not in a way of I want you to dumb it down or anything like that. Just, okay, there's an alien invasion, there's some strange stuff going on, there's this mothership, there's these other bits and pieces, then you've got, of course, all the different characters in different continents and stuff, although that's changed a little bit. And then you've got there's some characters that are trying to escape from places. There's this new religious group in the show which are interesting. They were given like their backstory episode, which was actually really good. There was some interesting like moral stuff in there as well, which I quite liked. It's funny because they had this religious group do a particular thing, and then the thumbnail for the next episode was the main woman from the group in that. So I was like, I wonder if this is a backstory episode to show what's going on there. And it was, and it fit in quite well. So I quite enjoyed that. I can't really get into spoilers, but there's one thing that they've said, this thing has happened, right, in episode 1. And while it's not a case of I don't believe the show, we haven't seen that thing happen on screen yet. So I'm wondering, and it's an interesting way that they've done it. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll get to the end of the season and, it did happen. You just didn't see it on screen, which I would still buy. But I've been interestingly cagey about that detail. I can't really describe any of it because it will give away a big like thread for that's gone all the way through season 3. But they've put that there. Hey, this thing has happened. We're going to show you bits around it, but not the direct thing. But yeah, that would be very interesting to see how that bit goes as well. Now that we've got a couple of episodes left of season 3, I think it's probably 10. Been very good, but it's just, I don't know if relaxing is the right word, but just a nice, simple sci-fi show with some interesting characters that I like and care about, and some interesting monsters that keep killing people. There's a mothership. There's some light political stuff in there. There's some army people doing certain things, a new religious group. So yeah, just having a nice kind of simple time with the show right now, which is good. Because I do remember it must have been, I can't remember which one came out first, but I remember when Foundation and Invasion were on at the same time, and they obviously come out like Thursday night, Friday morning, whatever. I was like, 2 sci-fi shows on the same platform to follow at once. Because they've been so different, they've actually been all right to follow. It's a little bit like, I know this is going back a bit, remember when Paramount Plus first came out, and it was like they had a season of Discovery and a season of Strange New World, and one of them was a box set and one of them was weekly. And so do you want to binge through one show while another one's come out? They can get in the way of each other almost a little bit. That's why I like with Disney, I know you said recently they might change it, how they had Lone Star, then 911. And I like, okay, you finish with one, you go back to the other, that kind of thing. So anyway, you said you're still behind on Invasion, aren't you? So
yeah, I'm about midway through the 2nd season, I think. It's one of those that I keep on looking at and going, I'll go back to that, and then other things get in the way. And so I haven't picked it back up again. But I do want to go watch the rest of it at some point. But yeah, thankfully there's a 2-year gap between each season. So.
True. And then finishing off with something I really enjoyed this week, finally got back to Dragon Prince, which I've been not on and off with, but taking my time with a bit more. Season 5 had a very dramatic end, which I finished a couple of months back. I probably did talk about that on Geektown a few months ago. And then I finally delved into, it ended in a really interesting place. Finally delved into season 6, episode 1. Might be one of the best episodes of the whole show because it takes that cliffhanger. It resolves it in an interesting way, although there's still some parts of it left which are interesting, and then just does some absolutely phenomenal character work, particularly between, I can't remember their names, the main guy villain at that point and his daughter. Let's say they have a disagreement about something, and the disagreement is quite violent, but in a way that makes sense. And then you have that, which is admittedly quite dark, although we don't quite know what's happened with that yet. Obviously, episodes have come out past it, so the answer is probably out there. But answered that question in that cliffhanger in a really interesting way, because it puts, I'll try not to spoil it, but it was the main villain of the first 3 seasons, and he was particularly evil and whatnot. And then there was these other villains that was looming in the background a little bit. Something happened to the main villain at one point, and it changed him as a character, which was really interesting. And in seasons, I think both 4 and 5, they did some really interesting character work with him particularly, and people around him started treating him differently and that sort of thing. So that was great. And then he gets told by someone, either you do this thing, which you don't really want to do, or this other thing will happen, which you don't really want that thing to happen. So he's left in a very particular situation, and he responds to that in an interesting way. And then the episode, considering it's only 27 minutes, has also got this stuff with Callum and everybody else, which was actually quite fun, really quite good. I highly recommend the show to people. It's quite short. I think I've got this one and one more season, I think 7 seasons in total. It's very lighthearted, very fun, but very heartfelt, and got a lot of heart to it and everything like that. That being said, there is some dark moments and things like that. Nothing horrible, but just the sort of family-friendly dark fantasy type stuff. It's got that in it as well, because there's wars and things like that are going on. And I know I've said this before about the show, but if you want something which is a little bit like Game of Thrones, but not the exact same thing, but something in that realm, but more family-friendly, this is a really ideal show to watch for that. But no, it's got really great characters. They continue to just develop them really well. And particularly what they did with this episode was fantastic. So I can't wait to continue. Anyway, you said you didn't know anything about Prince.
Other than what you said before, it's not one that I've been and looked at, but I'm glad it's out there. It's up on Netflix, so people can go and work their way through it if they want.
Just one last thing on it. I remember when they had finished season 3 and they weren't sure if they were doing a season 4, and I remember how they had this 1-minute Comic-Con presentation thing. It was a 1-minute Zoom call between the writers and the team. They went, Netflix has picked up the rest of the saga, we'll see you later, kind of thing. So that was really good as well. Anyway, that's what I've been up to, David. How about you?
So I've been watching a few new things this week. The Last Frontier, which is another new Apple TV show. It's a US Marshal that is in Alaska. Plane crashes, and it turns out it is a prison transport plane. It is full of incredibly violent prisoners, including one who they detoured to pick up and wasn't really on the manifest. You've got him in there as well. It's all a bit secretive and hush-hush, and this plane has crashed in the middle of Alaska, in the middle of nowhere, and the local US Marshal is the person that is there to basically have to deal with it and kind of clean it up and find these escaped prisoners. So that's your straight basic setup from it. It is from the people that made The Blacklist. It's got Jason Clarke in the lead, who is one of those people that if you watched anything like 0-30, he was in Oppenheimer, Pet Sematary, I think the remake of that he was in.
I remember that film.
So, yeah, he's one of those people that you spot his face and go, I've seen him for something before. So yeah, he's been in quite a lot of things. So he's the sort of main lead as this US Marshal, and he's really the person in control. There is a very shady CIA agent who is the person responsible for the prisoners and these particular flights, and she's not entirely being truthful about what's going on. And there is one particular prisoner played by Dominic Cooper in there doing an American accent. And obviously he was in Captain America First Avenger, he played Howard Stark, he was in Preacher, and you've also got John Slattery in there as well from Mad Men and a bunch of other things as well. So he's another one of the big leads. I think he also played Howard Stark, actually, weirdly. He played like the older version of Howard Stark. It's an interesting group of people in terms of the cast. It's quite a fun plot. There's only 2 episodes out at the moment. It becomes fairly apparent that this one prisoner is going to be a particular problem because, as I said, they detoured and picked up this guy who wasn't originally on the manifest and was all sort of secret and hush. It's quite a nice little mystery thing going on, and rather enjoyed the opening 2 episodes of that. So there are 10 episodes in the first season. It's running through to December, but that's called The Last Frontier. That's worth going to check out. And the other thing I picked up that was new was Revival. It's new to the UK. It's been out a while in the US, but Revival is another one of these shows. Do you remember we had this batch of shows a while back of sort of the dead come back to life, not zombified, just revived?
Some of them are pretty good.
Yeah. Some of them were quite good. It's one of those, though. This one's based on a comic book. And it is that sort of same sort of thing. It's set in rural Wisconsin, and there is a sudden day when a bunch of people come back to life, and they're labeled as revivers, and the resurrected people maintain their appearance, their memories, their personalities. The only difference is they seem to have regenerative healing abilities. So they do have the sort of zombie thing of being quite difficult to kill unless you take their head off kind of thing, which generally isn't really a problem as long as they're not like sociopathic.
Don't go on a crime spree or something.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, there are various people that you meet, and the rule seems to be if they died after a particular date, they'd come back to life. There seems to be a sort of cut-off date for when people died. You've got Melanie Scrofano is the lead in it. She plays the deputy in the town who was literally on the verge of getting out, and then all the kicks off, and her dad, who's played by David James Elliott, who people may know from things like Jag, he plays the sheriff, and he's her dad, and he's, no, you can't go, I need you here to sort this stuff out. Because of that, she loses the other job opportunity and ends up basically getting stuck in this town. So they're the sort of 2 big leads. There's also Robbie Weltman, who's playing M, who is the little sister of Melanie Scrofano's character Dana, and there is a CDC specialist played by Andy McQueen as well. There's also a random appearance in the 2nd episode of a Stephen Ogg who just randomly pops up. You're like, is that Stephen Ogg? I couldn't quite tell at the start of because he's not got like any facial hair or anything, and he was modeled slightly differently to how you normally see him. But I was like, I'm sure that's Stephen Ogg. And, oh yeah, it is. So yes, he pops up as a sort of random guest appearance. I'm not sure whether he's sticking around or whether he's only in this one episode, but yeah, he pops up in episode 2 as well. If you like those sort of the kind of shows that went out on Sci-Fi about 5 years ago, those sort of fun little sci-fi shows, it's very much in that sort of vein, and not necessarily the largest budget, but still quite fun and enjoyable, and very much that sort of sci-fi fare. It is actually airing on Sky Max over here, and it is all available on demand. It has been renewed for a 2nd season as well. It is coming back and is in production. I rather enjoyed it. It depends whether you like those sort of sci-fi things, but yeah, I thought it was fun and interesting. I know it's not zombies, but maybe one for you to look at.
I might give it a look. Yeah, I did like when we had those sort of batch of shows. I guess that's how the industry moves sometimes, not in the way of copying each other, but being influenced by different ideas. I think my favorite one, and probably the best one, was The Returned. I think it was was it the French show on Channel 4? Canal Studios, and that was very good. That never got like an official final season, but it did end in a pretty interesting spot though. I remember there was that Netflix one as well, which was like, is very short. I think that got cancelled after 3 or 4 seasons. That was like more of a British one, but no, I do like that idea. I think it was maybe a case of we got too many at once and that market did get a little bit too flooded.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, as I say, this is based off a comic book as well, so there is material for them to work from. But yeah, I know it had mixed reviews, but I rather enjoyed it. I thought it was quite fun. Like I say, don't go in expecting like really high-end sort of stuff, because it's not that. But it was an enjoyable enough watch, and I think certainly worth picking up, and it is all available on Sky on demand and on Now, so you can go and stream your way through it if you want. There was one game that I was playing around with as well called Ale Abbey. I don't know whether you've come across this game.
I think I have.
It's quite a fun little thing. It's basically, if you ever thought you'd like to run a medieval monastery, but with more beer, this is the game for you. It is a kind of monastery management thing where beer brewing is essentially what you're doing. So it's a sort of production management game. Quite cute little side-scrolling pixel graphics. It was in early access for a while. It's now hit its full release. And you play as essentially the manager or abbot of this monastery, which is dedicated to brewing the perfect pint. And it's got 20 different styles of European beer, and you unlock more as you go through the game. And you start off with basic recipes, and then you add various ingredients to tweak the recipes and make quality better. You treat quantities and temperatures and aging times and all that sort of stuff to make it more and more improved. And there is also some monastery building stuff in there as well. So you've got to build the brewery rooms. You've got to keep the people involved happy. So the monks and the nuns that are running these things in the brewery, you've got to build them dormitories and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, dorms, libraries, refectories, keep the monks happy, feed them beer as well. So yeah, it's basically sort of a management sim. It's part brewing game. It's really good fun. It's oxygen not included, but everybody's a monk and slightly drunk. Yeah, I rather enjoyed it. I'm not sure how much it's up for now, but it is one that's worth picking up if you like those like management sims. It's quite a fun little one to play. Yeah, that's Ale Abbey. If you want to go and look for that on Steam, I rather enjoyed that. So that's all the stuff we've been doing this week. Let's move on to some TV and film news. So we kick off the TV and film news with renewals, cancellations and pickups. And Prime Video had the cancellation axe out this week. They cancelled 2 shows, Countdown, which was that Jensen Ackles series, and Butterfly, which starred Daniel Day-Kim. Both of those have not made it past their first season. I've not finished Butterfly, but certainly a shame for Countdown because that ended on a cliffhanger with somebody locked in a closet. I seem to remember.
They can kick the way out or something. I don't know. It was weird. Speaking of Countdown, I almost forgot this happened. I think it was yesterday or the day before. I saw this. I noticed sometimes Threads, I think it's Threads, shows things a bit weird in certain posts. I haven't started Countdown and I forgot about it a little bit. And he posted rest in peace or something. And I was like, oh my God, somebody died. And then I went to click on it. And then thankfully, he was only talking about the show. But it said suggested post, Jensen Ackles says rest in peace or something. And I thought, oh, somebody's died. But yeah, I did read like a few comments and that, and people were saying they were really disappointed by that.
Yeah, I have to say, the show itself, as I think we said when the first couple of episodes came out and they're all done, it's okay. It was a little bit middling. It was a perfectly serviceable procedural sort of show. It did feel like it should be on a network. And the problem was it was missing a hook. Jensen was put in there as the hook, I think. You know how a lot of these procedurals will have a big sort of thing, particularly in the first season, which is the thing that draws you in, the Blacklist or the Rookie, or they have a thing which hooks you into the show. And this was just a multi-agency task force trying to stop certain disasters happening. And it didn't have a specific kind of hook to it. And I think that's part of the problem of it. It just, there wasn't a huge amount to grab onto. But it was well made and I found it enjoyable and it was quite watchable. But I'm not entirely surprised that didn't get another season. Butterfly, I only saw the first episode of, I think, for maybe first and second.
I don't think I was aware of that one.
And it was fine, but it was very underpromoted. It was based on a Boom Studios comic book, I think that one was. And it was about a sort of secret spy agency sort of thing. It was that kind of thing. But again, it was fine, but it didn't really have enough to it, I don't think. So, yeah, I can't say I'm overly shocked that both of those have gone. Both of them, it felt like a slightly odd place for them to be on Prime. I think had they been on networks, they may have survived better, but such is life, unfortunately. Yellowjackets announced is also coming to an end with season 4, but they have said that will be an end, so that isn't a cancellation. But does it feel that right to you? Because I know obviously you podcast on this.
Yeah, I love this show, despite other people falling off and saying they got worse and whatever. But because they always said the plan was for 5 seasons, and It's interesting because the end of season 3, you could do that as a series finale. I didn't want them to because I wanted the show to keep going and fulfill their vision. But I think it certainly is in a place where it could wrap up. Because there was one thing in and around, I think it was season 2, where there was a big change that happened because of various different reasons. And that apparently had a bit of a butterfly effect to change the sort of direction of the show a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if that would make it easier to do one more season. I don't really want to talk right now about where they are with things and where they could go. I suppose I could do that on a Hear Me Roar podcast. But yeah, they could certainly come to an end with one more season. It would just be, I think this might be one of them shows that once people's NDAs in 5 years' time start finishing, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw interviews about this show about, while I love it and I think it's great and I do love where it's gone, it has become clear sort of post season 2 that because of that change and other things, there wasn't the exact same thing that they were aiming for. But we'll have to see where it goes. But yeah, I think they can wrap it up with one more season. There was even a few people saying because of where they finished 3 and you could end there, you could even do like a film or or something. But there is still mysteries. There's still things to be solved. And obviously the other thing you've got to do as well, because you've got the 2 different time periods, which is the teenage girls on the island and then the ones that survive, the adults in the future, to wrap up those 2 and you make sure everything makes sense. And obviously if someone dies in the past, they can't be in the future, etc., etc. So we have to see where it goes. But I'm glad it's at least got one more season anyway, so I can enjoy it for one more season. They did say apparently that's 2026, which is...
That's a reasonable sort of turnaround, actually. For
although in that sort of 4 to 6 weeks, or what felt like 4 to 6 weeks, when we're like, is it renewed yet? Is it renewed yet? Maybe they started writing already and they've already got ahead of the curve. Felt like 6 weeks.
Yeah, so that's good news. At least it is coming to an end as opposed to getting cancelled, which is nice. So it's been a decent sized show for them, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, over on the sort of Paramount side of things, Dexter Resurrection officially renewed for a second season. So that is coming back. We knew this was coming anyway, but they've officially announced that it is coming for a second season. That when they cancelled the prequel series, it seemed likely that they would carry on with the main one. And as I said, I think at the time, you could have actually left this where it was at the end of Resurrection. I think Resurrection was a superb series and really had got Dexter back on track, but you could have stopped there. And I think I would have been satisfied with that as a series finale, but I'm quite happy that they're making another one because there is other places they could go at the end of that. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what they do with Dexter Resurrection. I think that's going to be really good. The Buccaneers over on Apple, that has been renewed for a 3rd season, so that will be coming back. And X-Men 97, they announced over the weekend, that has got a 3rd season. I don't think that's a huge surprise given what a huge success the first season was.
Oh, it's fantastic. Season 1, yeah. I'm curious to see where they go now that his name's not coming to mind. The main showrunner has, mostly from his side, quite a public fallout with Marvel. He's not really happy with their, I've read loads of tweets from him. He's not very happy with their direction, but hopefully it doesn't get ruined. The thing you're going to have now is, as you always have with second seasons, is, wow, that first season was so incredible. Can you keep up? Because a lot of shows have that problem of the first season so incredible with something. Can you avoid the sophomore slump? Can you keep the momentum going? Which is not always easy to do. Expectations will be very high for that.
Yes. So looking at it, I think it's got Eric and Julia Leward, who originally created X-Men the animated series, along with the original series director Larry Houston. As though it looks like that, even though it might not have that one guy there, they have got some people that were involved in the original show back as well. I think they're doing what they can to smooth that transition over as much as they possibly can. We have got some more Marvel news coming up as well. There was one other thing that dropped today, which was that Midsomer Murders on ITV has been renewed for a 26th season, which if you're in the UK, it's slightly annoying because the 24th season hasn't even dropped over here, despite the fact that it is a very British show. It's one of those that airs everywhere else other than on ITV. I think it may be on Acorn in the US, and it's one of those things a bit like Grantchester and some of those other things where it airs everywhere else apart from the UK first. And the seasons are only 4 episodes, So they slot them in when they can. It was like they drop an episode out and then it'd be like a 3-month wait and then another episode would drop out. So yeah, it's big tricky. But I think the 24th season is due out before the end of the year. Then 25th season has finished filming, so that should be out next year. And then 26th season is filming next year and will probably be out in 2027. Yeah, and I would say they're only like 4 episodes each or something. Yeah, it's one of those things. At least for Midsomer fans, it's back anyway. Going back over to the Marvel stuff, it was, of course, New York Comic Con. There was lots of Marvel, DC, and Star Trek news, particularly this time around. Marvel, we had a number of things. They dropped a trailer for Wonder Man, which is the next big Marvel show. It was originally planned for December this year. It's now coming January 27th next year, so they've bumped it back a little bit. But this is the one that is very meta kind of idea for a series. So the idea behind Wonder Man is there is a guy who is an actor who is playing a superhero and gets superpowers himself, essentially. And the way they're framing it is it was an old TV show that they are now doing a sort of reboot, and you've got the director talking about it in the trailer. So it's a sort of teaser. You don't really see much of what's going on, but we do know that Ben Kingsley is coming back as Trevor Slattery, one of the characters in this. It's Yahya Abdul-Mateen is the guy that's taking the lead role in this. I know nothing about Wonder Man as a character. In the comic books. So I think this could be an interesting one. But I quite like the fact that they're leaning into the kind of meta superhero fatigue kind of thing in the trailer and stuff. And they're talking about this sort of revitalizing it a part of trailer and talking about like superhero fatigue. And yeah, so I thought that was quite fun and interesting. So I'm very intrigued to see how this turns out. But yeah, January 27th, I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
I didn't manage to see the new trailer. I did see it pop up, but didn't end up clicking on it. But yeah, that's weird. Nearly 20 years, it was 2007, 2008, whatever, into this MCU. And I know we've had a few different sagas and stuff, but that's one of the points of having something like this, which is that you have different types of things that come out, which I do think Marvel's done a great job of in the last couple of years. Not that all of those efforts have been completely recognized, because Thunderbolts' box office will tell you different things. That film deserved a lot more. But yeah, leaning into meta stuff, different things. Obviously, animations kicked up a bit more as well, with X-Men and Spider-Man coming out and a few other things. So yeah, like you said, I know nothing about this character, but I'll let the TV show tell me all about him.
Yeah, I think it's a sort of interesting idea, taking the idea of making an old fictional TV show that's revamping the character for a movie, and then that character gets actual superpowers. But so I think that's an interesting, fun take on it. I think it could be one of the more kind of comedy-led ones. So yeah, I think that's going to be interesting. Daredevil Born Again Season 2, we knew that was coming March 2026. That is going to land basically a year after the first one.
Quite soon,
landed. Yeah, quite soon around. They did a stage panel at New York Comic Con. Kirsten Ritter showed up, and obviously we knew she was coming back as Jessica Jones, so she was there with Charlie. So that's all great. They've confirmed that season 3 is already in the works, which we knew that they're being renewed for season 3 after there was some confusion because Charlie was on a previous Comic-Con panel and called season 2 the final season, which set the internet alight. And then Vincent had to come on to social media and go, actually, I think he doesn't mean it's the final season. He means it's the last season we shot. He misspoke. Yeah, they are definitely now doing a third season. So that's awesome news. I enjoyed the first season. I thought they did a decent job with Born Again.
Yeah, I certainly thought they did. It was good to step back into that world after how many years it was. I was just looking, okay, so yeah, Daredevil, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, obviously Punisher came along as well with his show. Are you only missing Iron Fist and Luke Cage? Has everybody else come back?
Yeah, I think so, out of the original Defenders.
Because I know we've pointed out, like, hey, that person's coming back, that person's coming back. I think there's only 2 to actually come back. Apart from if you do a Jessica Jones show and then you have the characters in her show and that sort of thing. But for the main ones, I think it's just those two. But
Yeah.
I still think it's only a matter of time because they seem to be on track for doing that. Vincent came back, Charlie came back, and everybody else. But yeah, very much looking forward to seeing where this goes and how they just keep building on things. So
I think there is potential for them showing up in season 3 and them doing either a Defenders thing or spinning that off into a Heroes for Hire series, which is what it
Kinda
is
makes
in the
the most
comic books.
sense.
Which,
Yeah.
because I think those were the two weaker characters out of those sort of main leads. Though nothing against the sort of actors that are playing them. I just think the characters themselves struggled a little bit on their individual shows. So but I think a Heroes for Hire thing could work quite well, which is a Luke Cage and Iron Fist together. We'll see with that. But yeah, so maybe season 3 for those two. VisionQuest, they officially confirmed that was coming. It's the conclusion of the trilogy, started with WandaVision and then continued with Agatha all along. Paul Bettany back as the sort of white version, and it's him finding himself again. And they announced some of the cast for VisionQuest, which is the various kind of robot voices kind of thing. James Spader is coming back as Ultron.
Nice.
In there, you've got Todd Stashwick as Paladin, who is a bounty hunter who's hunting Vision. It's going to have Tommy Maximoff in there, who we saw from the Agatha All Along series. Tina Miller is back as Jocasta. You've got Emily Hampshire as Edith, Aura Brady as Friday. Henry Lewis is playing Doom, who is another robot created by Stark to assist him in his workshop. James Darcy is in there as Jarvis, which was the original AI created by Stark, who was destroyed by the creation of Vision, I seem to remember, if I'm remembering that right. So yeah, there's a few sort of different people that are popping up in that. I think that's going to be fun. Though both those series have been decent. I'm looking forward to that. I think Paul's great. James Spader's fantastic. I think it's an interesting idea. And they are saying that this is the third part of a trilogy, basically. So this will be the last one of that bit of the story. So late 2026 for that.
Oh, damn. A lot to wait. Didn't know that. All those written in front of me. Out of maybe everything Marvel's doing, because even Doomsday, I've almost forgotten the name of the film. Apart from that and like Secret Wars, which that's more of like a cast question as to who's going to show up. Apart from those two, this is probably the one that's got the most interesting questions around it because, okay, you ended up in WandaVision, which was 4 years ago, with this white vision. Okay, who is that? What I remember I had the questions of, okay, who is that? What is that? What's the difference? Then you had this whole memories thing. Then I remember you had this part in WandaVision where they found like Vision's exploded body, which I think was from the end of Infinity War. And then she was like, I can't feel it anymore. And then obviously the whole WandaVision thing happened, which had Paul Bettany's like a version of that in there. So you've played around with that character in a really interesting way. But so for me, it's not only the questions of, okay, what version of Vision are we going to have? And what does he remember or know? Or where does he go next? And then obviously you got the kids involved. But then what you're actually doing with Wanda herself. And is she, because there's so many, I feel like I almost read about 3 different rumors a day on what they're doing with WandaVision, because there's also the whole X-Men connection. Then there's things like there's going to be X-Men in Doomsday. So there's supposed to be this thing about her being, is it Magneto's granddaughter or something, which sounds really related to Magneto as like a mutant storyline thing. But then
she is in the comic books. There's some relation there, yes. So.
Yeah. So what's that all about? And then, okay, if Wanda meets this version of Vision, what does that look like? I just have loads of questions about it, but I'm intrigued by those answers. How about you?
Yeah, the last version of Wonder we saw was in the Zombies series, but that's a sort of Elseworlds other universe.
Yeah, we haven't seen her since then.
And as far as we know, she died at the end of Multiverse of Madness, but there's a good chance
just means a different thing sometimes. Especially with a character like her as well.
Yeah. So it would not surprise me if it ends up with Wanda popping back up at some point at the end of this VisionQuest thing. But we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I am very much looking forward to that. I think the other 2 series have been great, so I think that'll be a good one. And the other little bit of Marvel news was Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Season 2. That's coming in autumn 2026. And they've said that Season 2 will bring in more Spidey lore to the screen. And some of the footage shown at Comic-Con included some sentient black goo. We kind of know where that's leading, but yes. So yeah, you quite enjoyed the first season of this, didn't you?
I loved it despite hating the trailer, that was one of my most interesting journeys with a TV show. Because I remember, I don't know who, maybe I should go back and watch that trailer with my thoughts on it now and just see if they just, I don't know, maybe someone did the trailer badly, but it just didn't look right at all from the first trailer. And I remember completely, maybe I shouldn't have done it because I'm still a Spider-Man fan, but I ignored it from that point on. And then I heard for the next 6, 7, 8 weeks of, oh my God, this is incredible. And I ignored those comments. And then remember, I curiously checked out the first 2 episodes. I was like, okay, this is actually very good. And then it just kept getting better every single episode. Now, I can't believe some of the things I wouldn't even say tried to do, but some of the things they successfully did in that show just blew my mind. So yeah, I went from being like, don't care about this show because it looks terrible, to please give me season 2 as soon as possible. But I ended up just absolutely loving it. It was incredible. Did you ever watch it? I can't remember.
I didn't know. It is on my list of things that I will try and pick up and look at some point. But yeah, because I've heard a lot of good things about it. People seem to really have taken to it. Well, yeah, I'm glad that they're bringing it back for a second season. And yeah, end of or autumn 2026. That will
I thought it was going to be sooner than that. I have to wait a while for that.
Not. Animation takes a while. Over on DC, TV-wise, there wasn't a huge amount of news or stuff from that. The one thing that they did release was actually on the animation front, which was Batman Knightfall, which is a huge, epic comic book. It's like massive collected volumes. I have all 3 of them. But it's a multi-part animated event bringing to life one of the most iconic runs in the rich history of Batman. Knightfall Part 1 is basically the introduction of Bane. And Bane goes and frees the entire Rogues Gallery out of Arkham Asylum. And the idea is he's trying to wear Batman down and get him to a mental and physical breaking point. And he does that by basically breaking every single villain out of Arkham. And that is the introduction of Bane as a villain in the Batman universe. It's a really interesting starting point. You also got a point where, because it does eventually break Batman, you end up with Paul Valley as Azrael turning up and taking over the mantle of the Bat, but he's very dangerous and slightly psychotic. It turns into a much more violent version of Batman, and it ends up with Bruce having to find a way back to becoming Batman again. But ultimately what it does is it sets up what the modern comic book version of Batman is, which is the fact that Bruce realizes he can't do it alone and has to create the sort of Bat family which he has around him. So it's a very instrumental part of Batman mythology and history in the comic book world. I love the original books. They were late 90s, I think they originally came out. I'm quite interested in this and seeing how they managed to handle that in terms of the animation side of things, that sort of introduction of Bane and stuff.
It does sound like a good story. I wasn't aware of it. The only time I've seen Knightfall come up is when you activate something at the end of Arkham Knightfall. I can't remember what that was. This story sounds quite good, and it's interesting to see, I guess, Batman challenged in that way, because as much as he's capable of a lot of stuff, he is still human and he does age and that sort of thing. I would like to see, just on the Batman and getting older and stuff, I would like to see more Batman Beyond stuff. Of course, I know a lot of people have talked about, hey, Michael Keaton live action, because that just writes itself, which unfortunately hasn't happened yet. But yeah, if this leans into that a little bit as well, and the whole breaking out loads of villains, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. I think it's one that's certainly a lot easier to do in animation as well than it would be to try and do in live action, because you would literally have to cast every single member of Batman's Rogue Gallery to try and do that in live action, which is a lot of work.
You then get the endless questions of, hey, are all these people now the DCU versions of this and that? And you give James Gunn a headache.
Yeah, technically he has said that the people that they cast in animation are supposed to be the same as that. So he has said that. Yeah. So I don't know whether that's going to be what this is, but so we'll see, because they've not announced any casting for it either as well. Yeah, well, I don't know whether that will hold true with this or not, but that would be very interesting if it does. So yes, that was the DC stuff. Outside of Marvel and DC, Star Trek, they released the full trailer for Starfleet Academy, which is the next new big Star Trek show. And that's coming January 15th on Paramount Plus. I mean, it's had a mixed reaction in terms of the trailer because it's set in the Discovery universe. It's not Strange New Worlds. It's not like the sort of traditional kind of straight up Star Trek sort of thing. It's in that more Discovery vein. It's aimed at a sort of slightly different YA audience. I think it does look quite interesting. It's got Paul Giamatti in it, which is never a bad thing as far as I'm concerned. They also had a fun little announcement from Stephen Colbert, who, of course, has recently had his chat show cancelled in the US, but they've announced that they are bringing him on board as the digital dean of students. So he's basically the sort of background announcer telling the students that they need to come to the office or something's escaped or that sort of thing. I think that's fun. That's certainly they're using him as a voice today. He did a little video that basically said, I'm very happy to be joining my other on-screen castmates and not having to be spending 3 hours in makeup to do it. I thought that was fun. But yeah, any interest in this? You enjoyed Discovery, didn't you, I think?
Yeah. The final season was all right, and then it ended really well, which was kind of the most important thing. I know this is supposed to have some small ties to that. I still think this is a catch up with Strange New Worlds, but yeah, I'm interested in watching this and seeing where it goes.
Yeah. They did release a clip of Strange New Worlds Season 4 as well, which, of course, we know we're getting a fifth and final season of this afterwards as well. There is a little bit of blurb about it, but it basically tells you exactly what we expected, because the end of Season 3, which I think I said at the time, seemed like they were slightly hedging their bets in that it could have been a series finale, the end of Season 3. But essentially, it's them going off on the actual mission of finding strange new worlds, and it seems that they're leaning much more into that for the new season. So it's them finding anomalies, finding new worlds, going on away missions. It's a far more traditional sort of Trek thing that they're leaning into for that full season. Yeah, that's all good as far as I'm concerned. The little clip looked fine. All good with that. There was, outside of those big franchises, Solar Opposites, Season 6, we've got premiere date for that, October 13th on Hulu. Don't know whether that's going to be exactly the same date in the UK on Disney+. Hopefully it will be. But the little description of that was, once their alien diamond-making machine gets destroyed, the Solar Opposites must face their greatest challenge yet, living their expensive lives on a budget. While their consumerist habits and expensive hobbies are gone, only their true selves will remain. But will they like who they find? Also, the epic story of the people of the Wall has all built to this thrilling and shocking conclusion. So it's going to be, this is the final season, sadly, of Solar Opposites, but I'm very interested to see how they wrap this up, and particularly less so about the main storyline, which is always story of the week, and more about the story of the Wall. I want to know how they're going to end that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this looks great. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm a couple of seasons behind on it. I think when all that, was it Justin or Dan? I don't want to accuse the wrong person.
Justin, it was Justin.
When all that stuff came around, it soured me on it a bit. Plus, I was playing that game, I think it was High on Life at a time, which involved that same sort of creative team, and it just soured that to me. Rick and Morty, I'm like way behind on. I don't think I'll actually catch up with that. Although Rick and Morty stopped being one that I felt the need to be up to date with, because it's not nonsensical, but jumps around all over the place anyway. Yeah. But yeah, I remember really liking the story of the Wall. I'll try to get back to it at some point.
Yeah, the Wall episodes were great, and I still love it. It's one of the best character replacements that they've ever done with that, because the voice of Corvo, when they replaced him in season 4 with Dan Stevens, and who's a completely different accent, has a British accent, and they just open it with him getting shot in the throat with an arrow, and then he has this British accent, and Terry is just, no, it's working for me, just leave it. And at the end of the little intro, they're like, and you're going to hear this voice in flashback as well, because pronon particles. Just deal with it. So I love this. I love the way they did that, and they just like, yeah, Justin's gone, we're replacing him with that. But yeah, very funny that.
So it's on my Disney Plus is season 4, episode 6. So not that far behind.
No, not that far behind. Worth catching up with. He's brilliant. Solar Opposites, very worth watching. And the other thing we got premiere date for was Cross, which was that crime thriller series based on the Alex Cross books. Really enjoyed the first season of this. Thought they did a really good job with it. Second season lands Wednesday, February 11th. They've announced for that. So we've got a date for that. And also on Prime Video, Invincible season 4, there was a teaser trailer. We haven't got an exact date for that, but it's coming March 2026. But the meta teaser trailer with the two of them sort of invincible and one of the other characters meeting in the kind of diner, it's another one of those. And it's his on-off girlfriend that he sat with. And she's, I can't believe you let two other people do this before you had me do this trailer, basically. Because we're making fun of it. But yeah, it's very enjoyable that. But March 2026 for season 4 of Invincible. Outside of the New York Comic Con stuff, there was a little bits and pieces for Apple TV's Pluribus, which is the show I think we're both very interested in because it's from Breaking Bad creator Vince Gilligan. It stars Rhea Seehorn from Better Call Saul, and the trailer's delightfully strange and quirky. They've been dropping these clips out, which wouldn't be out of place as cold opens in an episode of Breaking Bad. And I don't know what's going on here. The trailer gives you a little hint more. We know that it's got something to do with the pandemic, and we know that the strapline says a genre-bending original in which the most miserable person on earth must save the world from happiness. So it doesn't really tell you an awful lot, but the trailer basically is her on the phone to somebody who appears to be in the sort of White House press room. He's thanking her for calling and is saying, we'll send you food and supplies and we need to find out what makes you different. And she ends with her going, what the F is going on? Yeah, there are shots in the trailer of hospitals and swabs and people being evacuated. So there's some sort of a massive viral outbreak. It looks very funny. It looks very quirky. It seems quite interesting. It's out on the 7th of November on Apple TV. I'm up for this.
Yeah, I did notice actually they had, I think it was a YouTube channel for it, and I caught on to that and then found a bunch of little videos that you've talked about, which, could be like the weird little cold opens that don't make any sense, but that's what they're supposed to do. But yeah, even from day one, even if you just said Apple TV, Ray Seahorn and Vince Gilligan, I don't need to know anymore, or even just Apple TV and then one of the other two. But yeah, Vince Gilligan, who still is the showrunner of the best show I've seen, which we're currently covering at the moment. So this is interesting timing for this to be coming around while we're actually covering Breaking Bad, because this will come out actually in the middle of that. Very curious to see where this kind of goes, and I'm glad it's also something, while the environments and stuff look very similar, that the idea is obviously quite different, with her having one particular outlook on life and everybody else has got a different one, and what that actually means. And yeah, I've seen a couple of the different videos with the drones and stuff where they're dropping something off or whatever, but I remember even from, what was it, the first teaser that we had, where this woman's like licking donuts from a box of them for some reason. Vince is just so good at that, of giving you this sort of, okay, this will make sense, but why is this happening? Obviously the teddy bear one in season 1 being a pretty classic one for Breaking Bad, of okay, teddy bear in a swimming pool, why is that there? And then makes complete sense by the time you get there. And then of course obviously got the talent of Rhea in there as well, played Kim in Better Call Saul. So very excited for this, and it's about less than a month away now. It was weird because we heard about this happening and then it just went really quiet for a while, and then obviously they were quietly working in the background. So we'll see what it's like.
Yes, so Pluribus is called, 7th of November. That is coming out on Apple TV. And there was another thing that dropped over on Prime Video called Malice, which is November 14th that's landing. And it piqued my interest because it's described as a twisty new thriller, but it stars David Duchovny, which you think, okay, fair enough, and Jack Whitehall. And they're like, oh, okay, that's a bit weird, but all right. Jack Whitehall plays a charismatic tutor who charms his way into the life of the wealthy Tanner family whilst they're on holiday in Greece. When the family nanny falls dangerously ill, he orchestrates his way into their London home, and his true revengeful nature begins to emerge. He now starts to turn Jamie Tanner, played by David Duchovny, and Nat, played by Chris Van Houten, against each other and secretly plots to bring down the entire family. So it's a sort of revenge thriller sort of thing, but the lead that is doing it is Jack Whitehall, which, I mean, just, it's this sort of square peg doesn't seem to fit in round hole. I'd be very interested to see him in a sort of solidly dramatic sort of role, but it's not at all what he's known for. So I think that will be really interesting to see how he comes across in that, because I've never known him do any of that sort of roles. David Duchovny, you can say X-Files, and he's done other stuff which is the bridge of comedy and sort of drama. But yeah, Interesting, that one. I know you're a fan of Jack Whitehall, I think, aren't you? So, yeah.
Yeah, big man of him at the moment. I'd maybe say he's my favorite comedian right now, although other comedians aren't really coming to mind. I still need to watch his and his dad's, not the travel show. There's another one that they did, which I think was Fathers something or other. I still need to go and watch that on Netflix. I did see his mum and his dad have got this new podcast as well, so I need to go and check that out. Yeah, they were talking about it on the news today. Yeah, his dad is a really funny and interesting person as well. Yeah. But no, I've watched all of, if not most of Jack's stand-up stuff. I've loved all that. And then watched Bad Education was a big one of his, and then among other things as well. That being said, with what you did say, I think David and Jack here could be an interesting combination, but not one that, if you said, okay, can you name two actors that you think you'll see on screen, it wouldn't necessarily be these two, but that could be an interesting combination. But yeah, we'll see how Jack does in this.
Yes, I'm very intrigued because the premise of the show, it's not massively original in the you've got somebody's coming into sort of secret revenge plot sort of thing, but the casting has me really intrigued. So it's called Malice. It's coming to Prime Video on November 14th. You can check that out over there. So that's all the news we've got for this week. We've just got some highlights coming up for the next couple of weeks on TV. So we've got highlights coming up for the next couple of weeks because we're actually going to be off next week. I've got a few other things going on. So there won't be a show next week. And then it's MCM. So the show after that might not be a full show. It might be an interview sort of clip show from MCM. And then we'll be back to normal service after that. But yeah, so highlights for the next couple of weeks. We've got NCIS Origins. Season 2, that lands on the 15th of October. That is on Paramount Plus, and also joined by NCIS Sydney Season 3, also on Paramount Plus on the 15th. The wonderfully brilliant Diplomat, that is back, the Netflix series for Season 3 on the 16th of October. So we've got that coming up. I'm very much looking forward to that. There is a show called The Iris Affair that starts on Sky. That is on the 16th of October as well. The Last Leg returns for its 33rd season. That's on Channel 4 at 10 p.m. on the 17th of October. The Forsyths, which is this new version of the Forsyth saga that is got Millie Gibson as one of the leads from Doctor Who. She is on Channel 5 on the 20th of October. That lands on there. There is a show called The Ridge, which I think it's a New Zealand series, a psychological thriller about a woman who travels to New Zealand for a sister's wedding only to find herself drawn into grief, secrets and dangerous desires after the bride-to-be is found dead. That's one of the ones that the BBC has picked up primarily for iPlayer, although it will be going out on channels at some obscure hour, I suspect, as well. But 21st of October for The Ridge. 911 and the new 911 Nashville. Both of those are landing together. So season 9 of 911, Disney Plus on the 22nd of October, and the new 911 Nashville, 22nd of October on Disney Plus as well. So lots of 911 coming together. There is a new show called Lazarus that is coming to Prime Video. It's from Harlan Coben, but unlike the previous Harlan Coben stuff, it is produced by Danny Brocklehurst that did all the Netflix ones, but this isn't based on a novel. It's an original idea from Harlan Coben, which Danny Brocklehurst has then turned into a TV show. It follows a man who returns home after his father's suicide to begin to have disturbing experiences that can't be explained. Bill Nighy is one of the leads in there, along with Sam Claflin and Alexander Roach as well are the leads for that. That looks like it's an interesting one. 22nd of October for Lazarus on Prime Video. And The Hunting Party, which we talked a bit about last week. This looks wonderfully silly and bonkers. Coming to you at Alibi on 22nd of October at 9 p.m. Former FBI profiler is thrust back into a thrilling game of cat and mouse chasing serial killers who escaped from a secret prison. I like the look of this. It looks like it's going to be quite fun. 22nd of October at 9 p.m. for that. And then Mayor of Kingstown, that returns for its 4th season. That's on 26th of October. And then lastly, It, Welcome to Derry, which is the drama series set in the world of Stephen King's It universe. That's going to Sky Atlantic on the 27th of October. So quite a lot of interesting stuff coming out over the next couple of weeks, I think. There's some good things for everybody, I think, in there.
Yeah, certainly. And 911s will be interesting, particularly Nashville. See that being brand brand new. I do wonder if they'll give any, not that it's related, but get any of the lone star cast to make any cameos. That would be fun if that happened. So yeah, those are the ones for me, and they're pretty much.
Yeah, certainly number one's Lazarus, Hunting Party, Last Leg, Diplomat, definitely. Those are probably my top ones in there. If people want to find you in the meantime, where can they find you?
You can head over to entertainmenttalk.org. All the podcast platforms are the same name for TV, games, films, main eye podcast. We've pretty much got 4 regular series at the moment. Gaming Talk, Gen V, Breaking Bad, and then of course the United cast. We're on an international break at the moment, but we come back the weekend to face Liverpool. And yet again, the question will be asked, can Ruben Amorim get his first back-to-back wins as a Premier Manchester United manager, because he has not done it yet. Liverpool themselves aren't in great form, but it's a derby, so anything can happen. So we'll see how that goes. Gaming Talk, we've had a lot of interesting things going on over there. Gen V itself is almost actually wrapped up. There'll be 2 more episodes, and then we've got the chunk of Breaking Bad to go through, and then there'll be other podcasts. I might do one for Yellowjackets, talk about all that going on, and then there'll be podcasts on other things as well. So we'll see how it goes. And then of course, if you want to follow me on any social media, I'm on pretty much all of them. I see the eTalk UK or Entertainment Talk, and you can follow or whatever and say hi. So there's that. That's me.
Yeah. So go find Matt over on entertainmenttalk.org, and other things involved in the show. Dominguez, you can find at hollywoodnewssource.com for all these TV and film articles and interviews. Daryl, of course, you can find at hollywoodnorthnews.net for all those TV shows that you love, which are shot in Canada. For us, you can visit the website at geektown.co.uk throughout the week and see all the latest air date information. If you want to get in touch with your questions or comments, email us on podcast@geektown.co.uk. Leave a message on the website post. Find us at Geektown on Twitter, on Facebook at facebook.com/Geektown, YouTube at youtube.com/Geektown, Blue Sky at Geektown, Instagram at Geektown UK, TikTok at Geektown UK, and Threads at Geektown UK. That is everything. As I said, we're off next week. We will then be down at MCM. There will be a show the week after we get back. But for now, we'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.